Bubble elevators. They're cheap, they're fast, they're easy to build, and you probably know someone who's got one of these in their base. They're also very, very user-friendly, where all you gotta do is walk in one side, you go up to the top, and then you go down using gravity on the other side, and you come out no problem. Up, down, easy, done, vertical Minecraft, complete. But my friend was not happy with this. You see, on an SMP server that we play on privately, we moved into a woodland mansion, and after doing so, we quickly realized how annoying stairs can be. So the solution to the vertical conundrum was to come up with a bubble elevator. Easy, up, down, goes up to the first floor, and then goes down to the ground floor. However, you don't have access to the third floor. And so he challenged me to build a single column bubble elevator that'll go to 3 floors. And I'm not that good at redstone. I'm really not that good at redstone. So there was a very, very simple concept. You'd have the ground floor, the first floor, and finally the top floor. And what you'd need is for the elevator to stop at each one of these floors, which means you need to restrict the flow of water and the flow of the bubbles. So if the ground floor is the one that you want to be on, you don't want any bubbles going upwards to the other 2 floors. Especially if you're trying to come down from the other 2 floors. So you just want a pool of water there. And then for the first floor, you want to make sure that the water only goes up to here and doesn't go up to here. And then for the final floor, you want it to go all the way up to here, but not here and here. And as you can see, we have a pattern going on where it's going diagonal. And you can use this pattern to determine what floor you're currently on and where you want the elevator to go next floor. Restricting the flow of water is very, very, very easy in Minecraft. All you gotta do is use one of these dispensers, and out pops the water, and then when you give it another signal, in goes the water. So we can control the bubbles and how far up the water level is. But this means that I need an activation system which knows what floor I want to go on, what floor I currently am on, and where I want to go. And so I started with some redstone. I'm really not that good at redstone. I started off with this monstrosity here, where I was trying to work out how to get a redstone signal to the back of these lamps here, and then cut the flow off from any of these buttons on the sides. You see, the aim is also to make this as intuitive as possible, and the last thing you want in your redstone build is a player to come along that doesn't know anything about how this works and just spams one button that breaks your entire thing. So one of the many goals of this was to make sure not only did it work, but it worked intuitively and would not break. So I tried turning off the buttons using a locking repeater for each time that it's accessed, but that quickly didn't work, and I realized just how little I knew about redstone after building just that. In short, it didn't work. So on I went, I learned all the redstone basics from the very, very, very beginning. There's some really helpful tutorials on YouTube that really, really helped me get my head around some stuff, get my head around some blocks. And then I moved on to prototype number 2, which I then realized how to mark these buttons more clearly, and I spaced out my redstone a little bit more. This right here is the T flip-flop, and what it does is it'll take a button's input and it will turn it into something like a lever's input. So for example, I turn this on, and this whole redstone line turns on, but it stays on even though the button has now turned off. And as you can see, I succeeded with the locking repeater, so your friend's not going to be able to break it. So what these lights on the back represent is actually going to be the water level that we want the elevator to go to for each floor. If it's ground floor, we want the water to be completely off besides the bottom block. That way you can fall down and splash in the water like on the down example of that elevator there. So right now it is on the ground floor and I cannot press the ground floor again. I have locked the repeater, there is no going anywhere else until I press another button over here, which then uses these T flip-flops to trigger this lamp and turn off this lamp. I'm not going to go into full detail here, but I basically used a delay tactic using observers to try and detect what redstone line was on and then turn the other one off. And that's why these lamps can swap back and forth. And that was the goal, because now it means I can swap between the first and second floor very, very easy. But I couldn't do it with the third floor. I couldn't do it. I couldn't hook it up. I struggled a lot, and I tried several different prototype examples to get this working. And I even tried writing it down as if it's code. Button is pressed. Is the first floor active? No. turn on the first and second floor. And this really didn't help too much, neither did this, unfortunately. A friend tried to help me with the redstone here, and I mucked around with it. And so moving on from the actual button presses, I tried to get the actual elevator to work in a way that wouldn't break. And what I came up with is you put the dispensers full of water at the back, and you put them up to wherever the top floor goes. And this is finally the circuit that I come up with. I finally did it. All of these buttons work in tandem with one another, and they use RS NOR latches. So an RS NOR latch is a reset and set circuit. It means it will take a redstone signal in and provide one out, and it will remember the signal that came in and out. So for example here, it remembers that this redstone is on and this one is off. But if I swap it, it'll then change to remember this one is off and this one is on, even if I take away any of the source, until it's swapped back. So taking advantage of that, what I've done here is I've tried to use delays into turning the redstone on and off for each one of these and hooking it up to the back of the RS NOR latch. And this fully functions. It works now. This right here is prototype number 5, I think it was, of the single column bubble elevator. These buttons right here are not hooked up and do not work, so we will have to go over here for the duration of this video. Right now, this light represents we're on the ground floor. And I, in particular, would like to go to the 3rd floor, so I'm going to press the 3rd floor button. The back here has observers observing a line of observers that observes a redstone signal to trigger the column of dispensers going upwards. One line here is for the 1st floor and one line here is for the 2nd floor, and you don't need a line for the ground floor. And so we've pressed the 3rd button, so it takes us all the way up to the top. But now let's say I'm on the top floor, because I am. I want to go back to the 1st floor. So let's press our 1st floor button, and what should happen is these will trigger in a sequence that will make sure that it only triggers to the 1st floor. Brilliant. But let's say I want to go back up to the top floor. Is there going to be any issues? Nope, because this is all timed perfectly to the point where it will turn on and off it'll turn on and off the dispensers in a sequence that will make sure it always goes to the right floor. And now I'm on the top floor again. Let's say I want to go all the way down to the bottom floor though. Hit the bottom floor switch, and all of the dispensers turn off, taking in the water, and down at the bottom here, a nice little splash. Now you might be wondering, Liam, well, how does the bubbles come out if you got a glowstone block there? Doesn't it need soul sand? The answer is yes. I've actually hooked up a little block swapper here down at the bottom that swaps out a soul sand block with a glowstone block. So A, you know when to jump down. You know it's safe to jump down. You can see it very, very clearly there at the bottom. And B, it stops the bubble column so you don't just float around for a while you're in here. And it's a very, very, very simple circuit. It works like this. You just provide it a redstone signal. This signal turns off this torch and turns off this redstone. And it swaps them. Like that. That's great and all, but that is a very messy circuit. So what I've done here is I've simplified it and made it just a bit smaller. You can see the bricks here are where the circuit used to be in terms of size, and now this is the new circuit. It is currently not hooked up to the main elevator here, but it all works! I've done it! It works! Halfway through the project, I got rid of 3 button presses because I realized just having 2 is enough. If you're on the ground floor, you do not need to press the ground floor button. So you only need to press the 1st floor or the top floor button. And there you have it, a working single column 3-floor bubble elevator. Which I'm not sure if that's been done before, but I'm very, very proud that I'm not really good at redstone and I've managed to do this perfectly. Look at that. 3rd floor right there. Let's go down to the 1st one, no problem. Oh, and it swaps and it takes you right to the 1st one. And it's foolproof too. These buttons work with RS NOR latches, which means they'll remember that you press them, and so any of the press that you do, it doesn't matter. It does not interfere with the circuitry. And so this elevator is newbie proof. It takes you to 3 floors. It's not very slow, and it's single column. It's just 1 column. It does have a little bit of space on the back, which I have tried to minimalize here by making the actual button circuit way smaller than it was. And I've even condensed the block swapper here and have condensed the inputs. All you gotta do is put this circuit here, this whole chipboard, I have no idea what to call it, down below the elevator itself, and you have an elevator shaft that will take you to 3 floors. I am very proud of this. I'm too proud of this. I don't know if I can make this go to 4 floors, but I reckon I could. It would just take more delays, and you've got to sort out the buttons again. But this is pretty much modular. You can see here that the circuit itself has a pattern to it with each button. So I reckon you could just keep adding on, and you would have a base that can go to different floors only in a single column elevator. So I've just realized I've neglected to talk in detail about how this circuit works for the entire video, so let's do that real quick right now. When you initially press the redstone button, the lamp will turn on and it will stay on because of the RS NOR latch's ability to remember the redstone signal. This was very, very important to me because when I did computer programming in college and university, we talked a lot about inputs and outputs, and outputs are just as important as inputs. If your screen did nothing when you moved the mouse or when you pressed on a key, you would not know what's happening. So it was very important to me to make sure that you knew what floor was active and what floor wasn't. Hence why the buttons here also have redstone lamps for outputs. If one of these lamps is on, that means that floor is currently active. Anyway, other than triggering the RS NOR latch here down at the bottom, it also triggers this observer, which is watching this piece of redstone. And this is a delay right here. It's a very, very simple delay that uses these redstone comparators to basically continue the signal going on for longer. And you might be wondering, well, why do I want the signal going on for longer? It's because the redstone here connects to the other RS NOR latches, both of them, and then triggers them to turn off, activating the redstone at the back. With the way buttons work, as soon as this lamp is triggered off, this would detect the signal again and it will trigger in a cycle, which is why I've locked the repeater here to make sure that this cannot output any more signals until this button is fully off and all of this circuitry is off. And then it's pretty much the same for the other two here. So we've got a delay, we've got a longer delay here, and then the redstone at the back here connects to this button and this button, turning them both off but keeping this one on. Same with this one. We have an observer here that detects the button's been pressed. It outputs a redstone delay signal, which goes and turns off the other two buttons. And then this redstone repeater will lock this redstone repeater, which makes sure no other signals will come from the observer. And that is pretty much it. I think you could add more buttons if you wanted. But again, one of the major points was to make sure that I could use redstone lamps and buttons as a user interface. So as long as I know that on the floor itself, this is the floor that is currently active, and if any of the redstone lamps are off, that floor is currently not active, it means, well, even though I know nothing's going to happen when I press that button, it basically saves you time as you're like walking past the elevator and you see that one of the buttons is on for the floor you want, so you don't have to press a button to check or anything, you can just drop right down. And I do think I've decorated this really nicely. I can't wait to install it in our mansion. Oh, one more thing. I've put the world download in the description in case you wanted to play about with the machinery yourself. For now, though, I'm naming this elevator the 3011 elevator. after myself. I know that other people have probably made these already by now, probably years ago. But because this is my first, like, original redstone invention that I tested myself to make, I am fairly proud of it. So if you use this in your redstone worlds, or any world for that matter, you're welcome. And now I shall magically swap clothes again. Anyway, I've not really messed around with redstone too much, but I was blown out of the water as soon as I managed to actually make something that works, and I don't think has been done before. It probably has, though. And this is just me, I did something, guys. I'm proud of myself. Aren't you proud of me? I'm proud of me. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, everybody, and I hope to see you soon in another video. Bye-bye!